The implication of incarnation, which is a word not carrying a proper expressional power, is being, in order to serve the spirit that owns itself, more correctly, spirit, in order to be able to utilize the matter of a crude cosmos via the being serving itself, is compelled to build and use a vehicle of influence, that is, a crude body out of matter of that cosmos. However, that being is not yet powerful enough to build such immense combinations out of crude matter by itself. Because of this, it will, according to its need, which actually means the need of spirit, build a body for itself, with the assistance of superior beings that are with duty of the evolution of spirits, out of crude matter and connect to it by continuously sending influences to it. And then the being will do activities among the crude matter and other beings pertaining to the needs of its spirit, which has started its communal evolution in that world, through this body it has built. That is, the being will manage that body in accordance with the behaviors of the spirit. After all, that body is built of a caliber to be managed by it. So, here, there is a being and a body, serving the spirit through each other. One of these is the being, owning a complex matter structure that we have previously mentioned, and following the spirit throughout the universe, which is a very subtle energy complex, the symbol, reflection and expression of spirit in the universe. And the second one is a crude body, made out of dense matter of that cosmos, for that being to be able to serve the spirit, using as a vehicle of interinfluence with matter and beings in the crude cosmos in which it is compelled to render applications. So, the body which has to serve the being that will accompany the spirit throughout the universe is but a temporary vehicle, that will remain connected to that being only during a temporary cycle of application in accordance with the needs of spirit at any crude sphere. The being, in the milieu it exists, once it meets the needs of the spirit it serves, leaves its previous body in order to build another body, suitable for its new needs. And this happens, again, with the help of higher influences. So, the being's building a second body in any sphere is named by mankind as incarnation or birth, and its leaving that body is named by mankind as disincarnation or death. Therefore, the being that is born in any sphere of a solar system, within a body suitable to the conditions of that sphere, reaches the last echelon of matter cosmos, after going through innumerable processes of incarnation and disincarnation in various spheres of that system, according to its evolutionary need, and this last echelon, in our system, is human, and in other systems, is one of the bodies at the corresponding stage of development. So, spirits evolve in this stage we call the hydrogen cosmos, not within disarrayed matter states, passively, nor by mechanical progress, as in the initial stages of development of matter, but according to the efforts they make in the states that are bound to matter, automatic or semi-comprehending. Now that the atoms of our world can make advanced developments in order to emanate high energies, which are the basic matter of a semi-subtle cosmos, superior to our cosmos, then our world is not a backward world as has been assumed or thought until now, but, regarding its material development, it is one of the most developed spheres with the most advanced matter constitutions of the whole hydrogen cosmos, with all its planets, suns, spheres, systems and nebulae. Thus, human bodies, used by spirits whose evolutions progress in parallel with the development of the world, are also among the most advanced and developed beings of this immense astronomical cosmos. As a matter of fact, as we will mention later, with the beings forsaking the world completely after utilizing all possibilities of our world and accomplishing its applications there, its simultaneous transition to forsaking the hydrogen cosmos as well constitutes the living proof of this knowledge. Let us make a rough diagram of the universe by likening it to 30 or 40 concentric spheres which are larger than one another, with their cosmoses entwined. The crudest and most primitive of these is the smallest sphere in the middle, which we call the amorphous initial matter stage. Figure 1 shows the cross-section of the first 3 of the concentric spheres we mentioned. Here, field A shows the initial developmental field of matter, which corresponds to the mechanical evolutionary stages of spirits, starting from the initial matter up to hydrogen, which is quite obscured. Field B constitutes our hydrogen cosmos with all of its celestial objects, and field C is the first echelon, relative to our cosmos, of endless other cosmoses which are superior to our cosmos and which ascend level by level, which we call semisubtle realm. Following this one, other stages will continue by widening further than one another. In this way, by going through innumerable embodiments in many planets of the solar system in simple, primitive matter complexes relative to the ones in our world but proper for conditions and situations of those planets, the being acquires the merit to build the human body on Earth, which is the most evolved being of our system. And from that moment on, it sets off developmental processes which are in freer states and forms. Comprehension of the being in the human state has rather increased in comparison to previous stages. Its free will has increased at the same rate as its comprehension. And in accordance with these capabilities, it has started to intuit the meaning of responsibility. Increase in all of these capabilities has caused it to gain the consciousness of sublime developmental mechanisms called love and conscience. By means of this, under the increasingly strengthening pressures of their intuitions of responsibility, mankind strives to complete the human stage as automatically or semi-comprehending, and for this, they go through hundreds of thousands of refining experiences in their human lives, by living through the ages. A man, if he stands alone in the world, cannot possess refining experience. And when he cannot possess refining experience, he cannot serve the evolution of spirit. Thus, at that point, the imperative of the various communal evolutionary plans in the matter universe shows itself openly. Therefore, bodily beings need to be in reciprocal interchange with other bodies and matter that exist outside of the body. Out of these relations with them innumerable event combinations occur. Thus, comprehensions pertaining to these event combinations, which are reflected from essence being to spirit, allow the evolution of being at this stage. So, spirit participates with matter. It builds the conscious matter, that is, the being. And the being, with the activities of its own spirit and of helping beings, builds as well a body out of crude matter. And it influences matter through this body. And by influencing other bodies other than itself with the crude matter it uses, it steps into the communal plan. And its evolution at the stage of being of the hydrogen cosmos starts to progress from this moment on. To ensure that no point of this important knowledge remains vague, we will provide some explanations. For example, for the evolution of a very backward man who is destitute of love and conscience, he must encounter opposite values in accordance with the duality principle and the value differentiation mechanism. He must face concepts like love, hate, justice, atrocity, goodness, evil, and by this means, he must automatically acquire some knowledge of comparison and restore his equilibrium. Because of this, it is necessary for him to be in relations with other bodies. A man, with a whip in his hand, lashes a piece of rock again and again. What result can he get from this? None at all. The results he might get from lashing this piece of rock cannot provide any opposite values that would determine his capabilities for love and conscience. He, when he cannot find a body against him, cannot start to perform atrocities and cruelties around him, and when he cannot do this, he cannot acquire opposite values which will spawn the necessary events in accordance with the duality principle and value differentiation mechanism, and as a result of this, he cannot reach the matter developments he needs, cannot evolve. On the contrary, if that man whips a child, things change. Various reactions of that child or of others around him as a consequence of this whipping will stand up before him as opposite elements, and immediately lead him to some knowledge of comparison. In this way, accumulation of the knowledge of comparison with the succeeding hundreds and thousands of events accumulating on top of each other causes the birth of a goodness, evil concept in him, in its simplest form, and by this, conscience starts to develop and becomes alive. Events that will occur as the result of all these acts are reflected to spirit and result in evolution. After that, new and more advanced needs emerge in the spirit. Spirit, in the face of these new needs, starts to expect more meaningful reactions from the communications its body will render with its environment in a wider field. And this new need of spirit, again, in a similar way to the previous one, is immediately reflected to the body, and its response is received from the body, that is, the being serving the spirit, by influencing crude matter and bodies around it through its body, causes the necessary events to occur in the face of these new needs of the spirit. He does good, he does wrong, he steals, he murders a man, he makes a sacrifice, and he sees the response, the reactions of those around him. All of these become an event. And by reflecting each of these events to the spirit via the channel of comprehension, it ensures its evolution. By this means, the human being, who finally reaches the last developmental stage of the world, forsakes the world completely in order to move on to more advanced stages.